You are doing everything right. You are working hard. You are praying. You are showing up. You are helping people. So why do you feel so empty? Why does getting out of bed feel like climbing a mountain? Why does the silence, the very silence you used to crave, feel so heavy now that you have it? Why do you feel most alone in a room full of people who love you? In 2026, we have a name for this. We call it burnout, we call it anxiety, we call it depression, we call it feeling lost. But 3,000 years ago, one of the most powerful prophets who ever walked the earth sat down under a tree in the middle of a desert, looked up at heaven, and said, "It is enough. I have had enough. Take my life." His name was Elijah. And what God did next, in that desert, with that broken man, is the most practical mental health strategy in the history of Scripture. Today, I am going to show you the 3-step cave strategy of Elijah, not as a Bible lesson, as a survival guide for 2026. To understand why Elijah collapsed, you need to understand what he had just done. 1 Kings 18. Elijah had just called down fire from heaven in front of 450 prophets of Baal. He had prayed 7 times for rain after a 3-year drought, and the sky opened. He had outrun the king's chariot on foot in the rain. By any measure, Elijah had just had the greatest day in the history of his ministry. And then, one message arrived. Queen Jezebel, furious, sent him a single line: "By this time tomorrow, you will be dead." And Elijah, the man who just called fire from heaven, ran. He ran into the wilderness. He sat down under a juniper tree, and he asked God to take his life. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because what just happened to Elijah happens to people every single day in 2026. You have your Mount Carmel moment. Maybe it is a project you finally finished, a goal you finally hit, a season of ministry that produced fruit. And then, one message arrives. One comment, one rejection, one diagnosis, one conversation that goes wrong. And suddenly the person who just called fire is running. Here is what most people miss about Elijah's breakdown. Burnout does not usually arrive at your lowest point. It arrives after your highest one. Because the high demands everything from you. And when you give everything and then face an attack immediately after, there is nothing left to defend yourself with. Your body is empty. Your emotions are exposed. Your spirit is thin. And the enemy knows this. He always waits for the day after Mount Carmel. But here's what I need you to see. God did not abandon Elijah in the wilderness. He did not rebuke him for running. He did not give him a sermon about faith. He sent an angel, and the angel did something that will completely change the way you think about recovery. He touched him and said, "Arise and eat. The journey is too great for you." Strategy 1, the physical reset. The first thing God did for Elijah in the wilderness was not theological. He did not open a prayer meeting. He did not start a Bible study. He did not give Elijah a vision of the future. He gave him food and told him to sleep. 1 Kings 19 verse 5. And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, an angel touched him and said, "Arise and eat." God's first response to his prophet's breakdown was physical provision. Because God understands something that our productivity culture refuses to accept. You cannot pour from an empty vessel. You cannot hear God clearly when your body is running on empty. You cannot make good decisions when you have not slept properly. The enemy loves a tired believer, because a tired believer hears every fear more loudly and every promise more quietly. So here's your first practical strategy, directly from the wilderness of Elijah. What I call the Sabbath of the body. In 2026, this means one thing: you have to turn something off. Not spiritually, not permanently, not dramatically, just off. The notifications, the news cycle, the content feed, the comparison loop. 1 hour a day. Put the phone face down. Let the body remember what silence feels like. Let the nervous system remember it is allowed to not be alert. God fed Elijah before he spoke to him. What does your body need before you can hear God again? Start there. Strategy 2, the mental reset, the audit of silence. After Elijah rested,
God told him to stand on the mountain because he was about to pass by. And then the most extraordinary thing happened. A great and powerful wind came, so strong it tore the mountains apart. But God was not in the wind. Then an earthquake shook the ground. But God was not in the earthquake. Then fire. But God was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice, a whisper. And that is where God was. I want you to think about your life in 2026 through the lens of this moment. How many winds are you living inside? The wind of social media, the wind of the news cycle, the wind of other people's opinions, the wind of comparison, the wind of your own anxious thoughts running on a loop at 2 a.m. How many earthquakes are shaking your foundations? Uncertainty about the future, instability in relationships, financial pressure, the shifting ground of a world that changes faster than you can keep up with. And in the middle of all of that noise, God is still speaking, in a whisper. But you cannot hear a whisper in the middle of an earthquake. So here is strategy 2, the audit of silence. For the next 7 days, I want you to do one thing that will feel deeply uncomfortable. 5 minutes of total silence. No music, no podcast, no prayer list being read aloud, no worship playlist. Just silence. And in that silence, ask God one question. What are you trying to say to me that the noise has been covering? Elijah heard the whisper on the mountain, but first he had to survive the wind and the earthquake and the fire. Your whisper is waiting on the other side of 5 minutes of silence. Are you willing to create the space to hear it? Strategy 3, the purpose reset. Find your Elijah. After the wind and the earthquake and the fire, after the whisper, God asked Elijah a question. What are you doing here, Elijah? And Elijah answered honestly. He said, I have been very jealous for the Lord. I have done everything right. I am the only one left. And now they want my life. In other words, I am exhausted. I am alone. I feel like everything I did meant nothing. And I am afraid. And God's response to that honest confession was not a lecture. It was a new assignment. Go, anoint Elisha. Find the person you are meant to pour into. Go back into relationship. Go back into purpose. Go back into the work. And here's the insight that will change the way you think about loneliness. Loneliness is not cured by being around more people. Loneliness is cured by purpose in relationship. Elijah was not alone because there was no one around him. He was alone because he felt like he was the only one carrying the weight. God's solution was not a crowd. It was one person. Elisha. In 2026, your strategy 3 is this. Find your Elijah. Not someone to impress, not someone to perform for, not a social media following. One person to pour into honestly. One person to walk with in real time. One person who becomes the reason you have to keep going because their growth requires your presence. When you have someone to pour into, your own cup starts to fill. When you have purpose in relationship, the cave loses its power over you. Go find your Elijah. They are already in your landscape. You just have not gone looking yet. Your cave is not your ending. It is your transition. Elijah went into the wilderness as a broken man running from a queen. He came out of it with a new assignment, a new companion, and a clarity about his purpose that he did not have before. The cave did not break him. The cave made him. So let me leave you with the 3 strategies one more time. Strategy 1, the physical reset. Turn something off. Let your body recover. God fed Elijah before he spoke to him. Strategy 2, the mental reset. Create 5 minutes of silence. Audit the noise. The whisper is waiting on the other side of stillness. Strategy 3, the purpose reset. Find your Elijah. Pour into one person. Loneliness loses its power when you have somewhere to pour. And above all of this, remember what God said to the man under the juniper tree. He did not say, "What is wrong with you?" He said, "Arise and eat. The journey is too great for you." He saw the exhaustion. He provided for it. He spoke into it. And then he gave Elijah a reason to keep going. He will do the same for you. If this helped you today, share it with someone in their cave right now. Subscribe to AB Thrive for more practical faith strategies every single week. And stay tuned to the light.